For decades, there's been this one patch of ocean that's just captured our imagination. It's a place where ships, planes, people, they're all said to just vanish, completely without a trace. Well, today, we're going to unravel that very story, a mystery that, let's just say, isn't quite what it seems. We're talking, of course, about the legend of the Bermuda Triangle. Just listen to that for a second. That was one of the last things anyone ever heard from Flight 19. We're talking about a whole squadron of 5 U.S. Navy bombers that disappeared back on December 5th, 1945. And wow, that single line, it just perfectly captures that unsettling, spooky feeling of the mystery we're about to dive into. So, what is the Bermuda Triangle, really? I mean, if you get past all the ghost stories and the spooky tales, what are we actually talking about? Well, people who believe in it, they point to a very specific part of the ocean, one with a long, long history of stuff that's, well, hard to explain. Let's start by just taking a look at where this place is supposed to be. Okay, so right off the bat, you can see we're talking about a massive area of the Atlantic. It's not some tiny little corner of the ocean, and it's super busy. Tons of ships and planes go through here all the time. But here's the first really interesting clue in this whole puzzle. It's not an official name. Seriously, you won't find the Bermuda Triangle on any government map. It's purely a creation of popular culture. But boy, in our minds, those boundaries are crystal clear. The whole legend is really built on a handful of these really famous, really spooky cases that happened over decades. You've got the USS Cyclops back in 1918, which, get this, is still the biggest loss of life for the US Navy that didn't happen in combat. Just gone. And then, of course, there's Flight 19 in 1945. That's the one that really lit the fuse on the modern myth we all know today. If you really want to get to the bottom of the Bermuda Triangle, you have to understand the story of Flight 19. It's the cornerstone. It's the event that took a bunch of separate weird incidents at sea and bundled them all together into this huge paranormal legend. And this isn't just some story somebody made up. This is a direct quote from the official records in the National Archives. This is real. This is the flight leader, an experienced combat pilot, and you can just hear how completely lost and confused he is. Think about it. He was sure he was over the Florida Keys. But he wasn't. He was way, way out in the middle of the Atlantic, hundreds of miles off course. And this is where you really see the split between the legend and what actually happened. The legend, it screams supernatural event, a vortex, aliens, who knows? But the official Navy report, it tells a much sadder and honestly a much more human story. It's a story about a series of navigational mistakes, growing panic, and a bunch of planes that just ran out of gas over a very rough ocean. So naturally, over the years, people have come up with all sorts of theories to explain these disappearances. And they run the gamut. I mean, from the totally bizarre, out there stuff to things that sound, at least scientifically possible. Let's kind of lay them all out and see what we're working with. All right, so in one corner, you've got the really wild theories. We're talking lost technology from Atlantis, alien abductions, maybe even time warps or portals to another dimension. The fun stuff, right? And then, in the other corner, you have the more scientific-sounding ideas. Things like huge bubbles of methane gas bursting from the seafloor, or giant rogue waves 100 feet high. We know the Gulf Stream is a beast of a current, creating insane weather. So the question becomes, are these things especially bad in the triangle? Okay, so here's the million-dollar question, right? Does any of the evidence for these extraordinary ideas actually hold up when you look at it closely? I mean, are we talking about something truly unique to the triangle, or are these just the normal, everyday dangers of being out on the open ocean? Well, this is where it gets interesting, because when you actually dig into the science, the whole case for a special danger zone kind of falls apart. That methane gas theory? The U.S. Geological Survey says there haven't been any big releases in that area for 15,000 years. Rogue waves? Oh, they're definitely real, and they are terrifying. But there's zero evidence they happen more often in the triangle than anywhere else. And the whole magnetic compass thing? It turns out it's one of the few spots on the planet where true north and magnetic north actually line up. It's a known navigational quirk, not some mysterious force pulling planes out of the sky. Okay, so if the popular scientific theories are looking a little shaky, where do we go next? Well, how about we ask the people who are literally in charge of keeping ships and planes safe out there? What do organizations like the Coast Guard have to say about the so-called Devil's Triangle? Well, the U.S. Coast Guard doesn't pull any punches. Their statement is about as clear as it gets. They're the ones who have to go out and rescue people in this area, and they're on record saying there is absolutely nothing special or unusually hazardous about it. For them, it's pretty simple. It's a combination of powerful, unpredictable weather and, unfortunately, human error. But maybe the most convincing piece of evidence comes when you just follow the money. Think about it. Huge insurance companies like Lloyd's of London, their entire business is about calculating risk down to the tiniest decimal point. If there was even a slightly higher chance of a ship or a plane disappearing in the Bermuda Triangle, you can bet they would charge more for insurance. And they don't. Not a single extra penny. And maybe the final nail in the coffin for the myth comes from NOAA. That's the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. They've looked at the data, and their conclusion is pretty straightforward. They say there is absolutely no evidence that mysterious disappearances happen more often in the Bermuda Triangle than in any other big, busy part of the ocean. Simple as that. So that brings us to what might be the real mystery here. If the curse isn't real, if the science doesn't back it up, if the Coast Guard says it doesn't exist, then why is it so famous? Why does pretty much everyone on Earth know about the Bermuda Triangle? How did this thing become such a huge legend? It turns out the modern legend has a very clear birthday. It all started in the 1960s when a writer named Vincent Gaddis coined the phrase Bermuda Triangle for a pulp fiction magazine. But the real explosion happened in 1974 when a guy named Charles Berlitz published a book called The Bermuda Triangle. It was a massive bestseller, sold almost 20 million copies, and it just completely cemented the legend in our culture. And here's the crazy part. Just 1 year later, a librarian and pilot named Larry Cush published his own book basically solving the mystery, showing how almost all the stories were exaggerated or just plain wrong. But it didn't matter. The legend was already out there, and it was way more exciting than the truth. So, that's where we're left. We have a solved mystery. The science is clear, the official reports are clear, there's no there, and yet, the legend is as strong as ever. And maybe that's the real puzzle of the Bermuda Triangle. Maybe the mystery isn't about what's happening out in the ocean at all. Maybe it's about us, and why a part of us just really, really wants to believe that there are still some places on the map that are wild, unexplained, and just a little bit unknowable.